Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. A proposed mining project in the Peel Watershed is at the center of a Yukon court battle this week. The Dawson area office of the Territory's Assessment Board recommended against the project, but the Yukon government says that shouldn't have happened. Jackie Hong explains.
The Yukon government wants a redo of the assessment. In court, it argued that the office exceeded its authority. That's because the office determined the project proposal did not conform with the Peel Watershed Regional Land Use Plan. The plan covers more than 67,000 square kilometers in northeastern Yukon. Company Silver 47 wants to do exploration work in one of the watershed's southern tips. Its project proposal was the first to go through an assessment since the plan came into effect in 2019. The Yukon says the Assessment Board office did not have the authority to determine if the project conformed with the plan or not. The company agrees. The Assessment Board is fighting the case, so are the First Nation of Nacho-Nayak-Dun and Traduk-Hwichin. The First Nations were among the signatories to the Peel plan. They're also both opposed to the project. The hearing is scheduled for 3 days. Court picks up again tomorrow. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Meanwhile, outside the Whitehorse courtroom today, about 50 people gathered in the blowing snow. Many were listening inside the courtroom earlier that morning. They came in support of the Assessment Board's recommendation against mineral exploration in the Peel. The rally was hosted by CPAW's Yukon. Organizers say they're optimistic the board will win the case.
They did a very, very thorough job in terms of being able to explain why they took the approach that they did. And the fact that the federal government, in addition to Traduk-Hwichin and Nacho-Nayak-Dun, is also backing up YESAB, to me is sending a very strong message about this case.
Protesters in Dawson City and the Northwest Territories also rallied in solidarity. They gathered in Fort McPherson, Sigachik, and Aklavik. Court proceedings continue in Whitehorse for the rest of the week. The Dawson Regional Land Use Plan is one step closer to being finalized. Once completed, it would define which areas will be protected or open to development in the Dawson region. The Traduk-Hwichin First Nation and the Yukon government have been working for the past 5 years to develop the plan. It's an objective of the First Nations' final agreement to exercise its right to participate in the management of public resources within its traditional territory. In 2022, the Dawson Regional Planning Commission released its latest draft of a plan that would lay the groundwork for how roughly 10% of the Yukon's land mass should be co-managed in the future. Both the Yukon government and the Traduk-Hwichin then needed to review the plan. The First Nations submitted its recommendations in April. Then earlier this week, the Territory submitted its recommendations and proposed changes.
And overall, we remain very committed to working with Traduk-Hwichin government and the Commission to achieve a plan that balances the diverse land uses in the region and ensuring that Yukon First Nations and public priorities are appropriately reflected to best serve the area and all Yukoners.
The Territory proposes increasing conservation areas to 45% of the region. Nearly 40% of public lands are designated for conservation, and 90% of all protected areas are situated on public lands. Now that both parties have made their submissions, it's up to the Commission to review them and draft the final recommendations. After that, the Yukon government would conduct further consultation. Players in the Northwest Territories mining industry have gathered for the 52nd Yellowknife Geosciences Forum. And this year, people are talking about the future of mining in the Territory. Sarah Kumilowski tells us what they had to say.
On the fourth floor of the Chateau Nova yesterday, dozens of mining professionals crowded in for keynote speeches and panels, all focused on the future of mining in NWT. April Hayward works for Lyft, a junior mining company exploring for lithium around Yellowknife. She organized yesterday's talks.
We need to invest going forward in exploration and development and in the minerals industry to ensure that we have a solid economic base.
During the discussions, many spoke about the need for collaboration between Indigenous governments and industry. Others stressed the need for more investment from the territorial and federal governments. Still, others said regulatory processes should be streamlined.
And a lot of the time in the staff of the Indigenous governments, there's a couple people. and they are bombarded with requests from every industry, government, everything else. And so they just don't have enough people to be able to deal with the volume of engagement that's required under the regulatory process.
McDonald wants to see more investment in Indigenous governments so they can do that work faster. Sarah Kromolowski, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A Yellowknife defense lawyer says he was surprised when a man convicted of murder fired him before his sentencing. In 2018, Kevin Mantla was convicted of the attempted murder of Mantla's ex-girlfriend and second-degree murder of Elvis Lafferty. Mantla later appealed the conviction, alleging his defense lawyers had set him up. The CBC's Nadir Hashmi has more on what happened in the NWT appeals court.
Charles Davison and Catherine Oya were Mantla's defense attorneys in the trial. Davison was cross-examined yesterday before a special commissioner reviewing Mantla's appeal. He said his last meeting with Mantla was at North Slave Correctional Center mid-June 2018, 2 weeks before sentencing. Davison said that he left that meeting unaware of any issues. He said he was surprised to receive Mantla's allegations later. Mantla alleges Davison arm-twisted him into not testifying and said it affected his case. Davison read out notes in court from early 2018 showing he had explained the pros and cons of testifying to Mantla. Davison said the decision was ultimately Mantla's. Mantla's second defense attorney, Oya, reiterated the same in her testimony today, as Mantla confirmed in writing that he would not testify. Another allegation by Mantla is that his lawyers failed to present all evidence. Mantla revealed in his appeal testimony 2 months ago that he remembers being at the crime scene, briefly blacking out, and then holding a knife with Lafferty killed next to him. Davison told the court that this was all new information to him. He said Mantla never mentioned this during the trial 6 years ago. Davison said such a testimony would have further hurt Mantla's case. The outcome of this hearing will be part of Mantla's larger conviction appeal scheduled for next year. The Crown will submit written arguments in January 2025. Mantla will be given 2 weeks to respond. The Special Commissioner will submit their report after that. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A song to celebrate the future of Inuit students. Inuit Tapirit Kanatami unveiled plans today for a university on Inuit land. It'll be called Inuit Nunangat University, and it's been in the works for a while now. The goal is to create an Inuit-led institution that's both an educational and cultural hub. And because the new university will be on Inuit land, northern students won't have to travel south for education. Here's more on the impact this university could have.
And it is our vision to have a world-class education with transferable degrees where we can graduate students who can support our communities, but also be leaders in whatever field they choose. We don't want to qualify our educational success. Our ambition is a world-class education without having to sacrifice our language or culture to do so. The spirit of this university is deeply entrenched in that philosophy, in that idea, that we don't have to compromise any of our knowledge or our society or culture or values to have world-class education. It is possible, and we are going to lead the way towards that.
Imagine cutting-edge research done by Inuit scientists and students, working to solve issues affecting Inuit in the Arctic, including climate change. Imagine education and training programs that meet the unique needs of Inuit learners, including those living in remote communities. Imagine one day online learning being available to Inuit mothers so that they can get a university degree and start a career and improve the lives of their children. The benefits extend well beyond Inuit students. The university will help preserve our cultural heritage, and share our knowledge with others, including non-Indigenous Canadians, international students, and academics. This will be key to advance climate action, for instance. It will advance economic development and create job opportunities. It will advance reconciliation in Canada.
The MasterCard Foundation donated $50 million to Inuit University. In total, ITK says it'll need $160 million. It asked the federal government for $50 million in next year's budget. ITK hopes to welcome the first students to Inuit University in 2030. The homeless population is increasing in Rankin, Inlet, Nunavut. People are couch surfing and sleeping in public building porches. And as the weather gets colder, some people are becoming desperate to find a warm place to sleep. The CBC's Selma Eccles reports.
63-year-old Bernard Kakok has been living homeless in Rankin Inlet for 4 years. He says he finds shelter in the lobby of the Royal Bank since he lost his public housing unit. Kakok says Rankin Inlet is in urgent need of a homeless shelter.
I think they should open up a homeless shelter in Rankin. Like, there's getting more people that it's not just us guys. There's some few ladies out there too that are homeless.
George Arnalugyoak says he has been homeless and in and out of jail most of his life. He finally got a unit from public housing after being in a summer tent all winter.
Yeah, now I can go home where I'm sleeping warm.
Pulawik Kamluk Friendship Center says there's a 3-bedroom house available as a men's shelter, but it needs a poverty reduction coordinator to run the shelter. The job advertisement was open in the spring, but no one has applied for the position yet. Pilaji Sharp, the executive director for Pulawik, says they just can't compete with GN benefits. Once the position for men's shelter is filled, it will open. Selma Eccles, CBC News, Rankin Inlet.
Over the summer, Yukon MLA Annie Blake went public about her struggle with addiction. Blake went on medical leave to take care of substance use issues. The Vantakwichin MLA says she relapsed following what she called traumatizing events and grief, including the death of her sister. Blake shared her journey with the CBC's Virginie Anne.
I printed the post that you wrote on Facebook over the summer, June 25th, and I was wondering if you could read a few lines for us.
God, this seems so long ago. I actually think that's the date I left to treatment. I think what stands out is for the past while, I've experienced several repeated traumatizing events, as well as the loss of several close friends and relatives. These experiences and ongoing effects of trauma has left me coping in ways that are not sustainable for me, which has led me to use substances in ways that are not healthy. And I think for someone in a public role, it is so hard and scary to admit when we are struggling, which is so true.
Bring us back to that day. What made you decide to post it?
I think for me, it was important for me to just be honest. I believe in accountability because, you know, the people I represent deserve to know what's going on in my life.
Blake grew up between her home community, Old Crow, and Whitehorse. She was elected as the MLA for Vantakwichin, her community, in 2021 after spending a few years working in healthcare and mental wellness. But over the last year, her own wellness took a toll after the death of her only sister. She says the pressure became too much and the grief became too hard to handle. Blake relapsed into her addiction.
Yeah, I wasn't in a very good place at the time. I had nothing left to give, nothing. All I saw was where I wanted to be, and I didn't want to be alive at the time. Think back on that time was like a few times, and I just kind of shake my head because the worse I got with using, the less I became a mom to my kids. I could remember one evening my daughter standing to me and she straight up told me, she's like, I don't even have a mom. I don't have anybody. I'm so alone. I don't know what to do. Like, she was struggling, visibly struggling and crying in front of me. And I looked at her and it didn't even faze me. And I told her, I was like, I have nothing left in me, nothing. And she just looked at me and started crying, and I just kept using. Like, that's how lost I was.
What did it take for you to realize, okay, I need help?
I think it took probably me ending up in the hospital. Like, I think if I didn't end up in the hospital at the time when I did, I probably would have died in my daughter's bed. It's always been around me. I grew up around it. Like, it was primarily drinking that I grew up around. I could remember so clearly first time when I was like 5 years old. And then the first time I got like completely intoxicated and blacked out was probably when I was 12 years old.
When Blake was that age, she lost her father and her 4-year-old brother in a fire. He was the youngest of 5 siblings.
I felt so like hopeless and alone because I was so hurt. I coped with it the best way I can.
This is not something we hear quite often, a public figure talking honestly about your history of substance use. So why did you decide now to come out publicly about it?
I feel like at that time I got so frustrated with hearing like the rumors that some people that were talking about it were talking as if I was using for the last 25 years, which is not the case. I understand if people are angry with me, and I've apologized to people. I went to the community of Old Crow in September, up to the General Assembly in September, and I said straight up, I'm not here in my role, I'm here as me, and I'm here to clear the air and apologize to the community if there's any shame or guilt that I've brought to them as their MLA for that community.
Did you feel the pressure to come back?
Yeah, because I knew I was needed back in the legislature. I have to also uphold that responsibility. It was quite challenging transitioning back, but I think going through all of this that I've been through in the short while I've been through it, there's a lot of lessons I've learned. I was able to experience what it's like to go into a treatment center, how scary it is. One of the biggest things that really helped me in treatment, I've lived through a lot of sexual abuse in my childhood, and I've been through a lot of sexualized violence as a teenager. I actually felt at home when I realized that every one of us sitting in that circle in treatment, all my peers, every single one of us in that circle went through sexual abuse. And I think about our history with residential school, Indian day school in the Yukon. Every community has been impacted by.
But lots of lessons in there. And how do you see that those lessons can serve you as a human, but also in your role as an MLA?
One of the biggest things I've been able to gain insight into is when I left treatment, I had to sign a contract with my aftercare worker. And one of the things in there is to attend Narcotics Anonymous meetings 5 times a week. But here in Whitehorse, I couldn't find like a consistent NA meeting that happens 5 times a week. They wanted me to find like a sponsor. I was not able to find that, which makes me think about the importance of having like an aftercare team. There is so much opportunity out there to build that. And I think it's so important for people to know too that, despite whether or not they struggle with drugs or alcohol, it doesn't make them any less human. I've been through it, I've been judged harshly by some people out there for using drugs. Some people think I should have stepped down, but at the end of the day, we're still human.
Part of Blake's recovery journey took part outside of the territory. She mentioned Cedars Treatment Center in BC, but what about treatment programs right here in the Yukon? That's what I'm looking into next. Virginie Anne, CBC News, Whitehorse.
If you or someone you know needs help, there's support out there. You can call the Hope for Wellness helpline at 1-855-242-3310 or the Nunavut Kamatsiaktut helpline at 1-800-242-3310. 265 3333. Arctic sports have been played in the North for centuries, and this week, elementary school students in the Yukon carried on that tradition. It's an opportunity for kids to learn how to play traditional games and find out what they're made of. George Moratis has more.
They hop. They pull. And they kick. For most of these participants, these games are brand new.
Because I almost got third place, but they don't do third place.
For Avery Woodman, her specialty is the seal crawl.
It's where you lay on the ground and you cross your legs and you can't make your knees touch the ground.
Sounds painful. Arctic sports have been played for centuries in the North. They prepared people for living on the land and the hunt that lay ahead. Today, the games are helping connect young people of all backgrounds with First Nations culture.
I think it's very good to learn about all sorts of different traditions, but they're living here where these games, were used back in the day. And
it's fun and it's really hard because you have to use your leg muscles and your arm muscles because you have to push with your legs and pull with your arms to get the stick.
Today, it's not just the students who are learning.
I've learned in the beginning and I'm still learning because it's a special technique and we improve each year. So I'm glad the community here shared that with us.
So all other ones, I kind of failed most of them, but then since I had a lot of grip and I was ready for this one, for the week, I managed to pull really hard and I managed to get all of them in a win in a row.
How did that feel?
It felt good, but now I'm really tired.
For Canvar, he didn't just hop, pull, and kick today. He jumped into a new sport and culture, leaving with a lifetime's worth of memories and something to show for it.
It's my first medal I ever won, too.
Canvar and other top performers from this week will now head to Carcross for the Arctic Sports Final. George Moratis, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A 6-person snowshoe-making workshop filled up fast this week in Inuvik. The 2-day event is being held by the Deshinta Center for Research and Learning. Participants will make their own full-size snowshoes to bring home. The CBC's Des Loreen got an early preview.
This is just the very tip of the tree that I got.
Noel Cockney taught himself how to make snowshoes. He started last month by practicing and watching online videos. For Cockney, it's all a part of passing on Inuvialuit traditions.
It's a lot about just bringing back a bunch of our culture that's not regularly practiced anymore. So to be able to actually not only learn how to do these things, but also pass the knowledge on that I'm learning and teaching myself.
The Inuvik Native Band is hosting the event. The workshop will take place Friday evening and all day Saturday.
It's really exciting and I'm so proud that we're able to get these opportunities. It's all part of mental wellness and, connecting with our culture and just being able to share that knowledge.
This one, just completing the weaving of the main body.
Cockney is already planning another snowshoe workshop for later this winter. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
Youth in Iqaluit are learning how to make traditional Inuit drums. Their instructor is a longtime traditional drummer and drum maker. Noel Kalutjak takes us there.
Pilbig acquired funding to give these young people an opportunity to make drums. They're learning how to build traditional drums and how to use it. Sikwak says it is important to pass on the traditional way of drum making and dancing.
I only know this much, but I want to show people who are interested in art of drum making, drum dancing, although I know this much. And I told myself a long time ago that although I'm not a classy drum dancer, if I don't pass on what I know on drum dancing, just like many drummers before me.
The students are also connecting to the traditional way of life. Alexia Cousins is one of the students.
Kind of bringing me back to my childhood as a drummer, and as I'm sanding and carving the wood, I'm thinking about all the songs that I used to sing with David and the drum crew in the past. But it's a good way to kind of reconnect with our culture and our history, and to understand what the drum meant for a settlement or a camp.
Once the students have completed the drum making program, they will perform in front of an audience to show what they have achieved. Noel Kalujak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always go to our website, cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night. This is CBC North on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Get local headlines, weather, and community notices, plus newscasts and live programming on your favorite connected device, all for free. It's called the CBC News North streaming channel. You can see your community on your connected TV and mobile devices. CBC News North, your local news streaming channel, is now available.
Oh, wait, are we allowed to touch? Like, no, it's fine, yeah.
In Australia, a unique experiment
How come you guys don't have a table? We do have a table.
is about to unfold. A school swap that brings together 12 students from very different cultures and religions.
You do what you want to do, it's fine, I'll do me.
My fear is, instead of building bridges, they'll end up blowing them.
I want to be seen as me and not my hijab, not scary terrorists or something like that.
You're going to be introduced to a new world. Stand back.
I think my dislike is born.
What was Amy calling it? The beef wars?
You don't tell me anything. You don't share your feelings, open up about your past.
It's not that simple, Amy.
Heart is pounding.
This is very hard to do.
We both know it's not an easy task.
The Great Canadian Baking Show. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Is this what happened last time?
It's possible this is worse.
This is not the kind of suspense I like.
If you choose family, you can never go wrong.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.